Well, it's probably about all the mowing for today, but look at all this nice green ryegrass here where the dogs have pretty much greened it up from coming out here and going during the winter time right about in this area. And you can see there are other spots out here. One of those days today where you might see some nicer weather sandwiched in between some not so nice weather coming up. But we recently got just about an inch of rain, just slightly over an inch of rain, which is very, very helpful, even though not much is growing yet here. It's just very slowly coming out of the dormancy mode, but it's just kind of how things go. So I've been looking around at some various things. Saw some forsythia blooming in the area, so I need to check today some soil temps, some other things going on, and see if I might need to get some applications done. So basically last fall, those had like a clearance sale. This happens a lot of times at the end of a season where they're just trying to get rid of stuff. And so some of it was half price, some of it was even better than half price. So I ended up stocking up on a whole bunch of stuff for this season and just setting it in the shop and having it sit there until it was ready to be applied. So today I'm gonna grab a few things and go check some temps and see if I'm gonna get some pre-emergent down. And by the way, today's nice day says the wind chill is 37 right now, so you be the judge of whether that's nice or not. I mentioned this last year, but I planted grass seed in between these main 6 plots, the original 6 plots that I planted years ago here. The only one that I do not have in this plot section here is fine fescue, but I have that in a different section. So this covers all of my elite turf grasses that I have for sale. Those were just there so that over the first few years we could see what they look like during different seasons. All of that is on the channel if you want to go check some of that out from years past. But as I built this golf green down here, I decided that I needed an area that had grass in it in every single section, including in between the plots, just because you never know where the ball's going to land, and it makes it easier to just mow everything and all of that. So unfortunately, the irrigation heads on the in-between sections were placed a little lower, just because of the way that things were when I originally planted it. So there is a little bit of a bump that goes down into the next plot, and the in-between section, I may have to redo this in the future if it becomes a major problem, but we'll just see how it goes this season as the first season of it being completely the way that it is right now. All that is to say that this whole section here behind us is going to be treated more like one section of grass now. So that also allows me to measure it out, get a sense of how big it is, make applications, and kind of treat everything as one. So that is the plan. I don't know exactly what the measurement is of this whole big rectangle here, so I'm gonna do that first, check the soil temp, and then we'll talk about pre-emergent. Looks like we got about 67 feet. Got to 100 feet right here, make a little marker. Call that 119 feet. So just roughly 8,000 square feet for this area. So as I said, I've also been seeing the forsythia in this area change and bloom. So that is a natural indicator of the soil temperature being close to roughly 50, somewhere around there. But I'm gonna check right now and just see what I have in these plots. First, we're gonna go about 4 inches down and let this settle out here. It takes just a moment. That settled out at 48.4. So we're getting very close to that 50-degree mark where the weeds are gonna start to get going. Now, the other thing that you have to look at is what is your upcoming forecast. So a lot of times people will hit 50 degrees and they think, oh man, I didn't get anything down before this. But maybe after that, there's a big dip in temperature, and soil temperatures definitely fluctuate a lot. We actually have another low in the low 20s coming this weekend, which is probably going to take the temperature down again. But as I look just past that, so just past a couple days past our coldest temp coming up, I'm seeing all 70s, mid 70s coming for highs, which means that this soil temp is then going to start to rise again. And again, look at that long-term forecast and see what the trends are looking like, because if it's trending towards getting warmer and warmer and staying consistently warm, well then you know you can go ahead and apply something, and very, very likely it's going to be warming up to where that needs to be applied about this time frame. A lot of people say, well, what happens if I'm early? And well, this product just mainly has an expiration, if you would call it that, of a certain amount of time that is going to last into the soil. Now, there are other things that affect this, how much rainfall you get, how much heat you get, lots of different things. So it's hard to say exactly how long it's going to last in your soil. But if you're early, then that just may wear off into the summertime when you still need it. And at that point, still not a catastrophe. All you really need to do if you find some weeds popping up is spray them in the early stages. Totally fine, not a big deal. But you don't really want it sitting on the ground here way early either, because there's just really no need for it at that point. So again, this timing thing is just trying to figure out the trends and making an educated guess as to how that is all going to go. We know that we cannot predict the weather. So today I think it's about a good time for me. I have that coming up. Also, one thing to keep in mind again is that this has to be watered in order to activate. So for some areas like that big fairway that I have up there, this is going to be interesting on timing because I don't see any major rainfall coming to where I'm going to be able to get that watered in well from rainfall. So I can't really get a lot down with a sprinkler. I may have to, but we'll just see how that plays out. This is all irrigated down here. So after I get this application done, if I don't get any rainfall, then I can go ahead, get the irrigation turned on, get it all watered in, and it will be activated in the soil at that point. So this particular product that I have right here says it will treat up to 18,300 square feet of turf. So this is a 50-pound bag. So this is definitely going to cover our area, but now we have to figure out how much of this do I actually need to apply evenly over that 8,000 in order to be accurate according to what's on the back. So let's take a look. Very important to look at the label on any product to make sure you understand what the rates are, what the warnings are, and all of that stuff. But right now, let's also look at, this is going to tell you which weeds does this control. Another very, very common thing that I see from people is that they say, well, I applied my pre-emergent, I see dandelions coming up, I see clover coming up, I see all these things. It must not have worked. Well, you have to look at the label and see what this is labeled to control. Those things are not on the label. Those are things that we can spray, take care of with different things, but this is pretty much for the grassy weeds. Especially in my area, foxtail can be an issue, but this is typically going to be for taking care of preventing crabgrass. There's other things on the label, check that out. So right here it's going to tell you as well recommended rates for this product. Now this gives you some different things that you can do. So it's got 2 to 3 months of control. If you're just trying to get this down, you know you have a seeding later in the season planned and you don't want it to last forever so that it affects that seeding in any way. You just want to make sure that during this time frame here you get the crabgrass prevented. So you can pick that. Or you can pick 3 to 4 month control. You could also, with this lower rate, you could do a split application. So you could do the 2 months of control now, then when soil temps are around 70, you could go ahead and do the second app. Now the thing that I've found that's very difficult with something like this number here, 1.4 pounds per thousand, is that I have never really found a great way to get that through a spreader. Unless the granular is very, very fine, which this is not going to be fine enough, I don't believe, which I haven't looked at it yet, so we'll see. It's something that is very difficult to do through a spreader. So that's why I personally, for this area, I'm going to go with the higher rate. It says 1.90, but we're going to probably calculate it out to 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet if I can apply that perfectly. Down for the south, these are a little bit higher rates because of the way that things wear off with excess heat, all that stuff. But the maximum here is 2.73 pounds per thousand on warm season stuff. So it says in the label over here that 2.73 is the maximum rate for the season. So that means that's what you can apply in one season, no more than that. Now this one does happen to have fertilizer in it. And in the past, I've used a different product that I think I also got at Lowe's that is just the pre-emergent and just a slight amount of potassium in it. But as far as nitrogen goes, there's nothing in those products. What I've learned about my soil specifically here is that because of its sandier nature, especially down in this section being more of a silt type soil here, it doesn't hold on to nutrients quite as long. Applying more nitrogen throughout the season for me in lower doses is something that actually has to happen in order to keep things consistently green. Now you might have a really heavy soil, has a lot of organic matter in it, and it holds on to things longer. Now the reason that you don't typically want to apply a lot of nitrogen here in the early spring is just because you're going to get a lot of excess growth coming not too long from now. As soon as I hit those 75-degree marks for the temp for highs every day, the grass is going to naturally start to jump out of the ground. The more nitrogen we have on the ground at that point, the more excess growth we get. Harder to mow, harder to keep up with. It's just not necessarily what you want. Because I didn't apply anything to this late in the season last year, I'm going to be okay to put this on, and I may have to mow like crazy here in the early spring, but I'm okay with that personally. It really comes up to what you're comfortable doing and how much you want to mow, how much you want to do all that stuff. So I see lots of things on YouTube these days about do this, don't do that, but over the years I've tried to show various things, explain it. One size does not fit all when it comes to lawns and soils and all of that stuff, so keep all of that in mind. So 8,000 square feet, roughly 2 pounds per 1,000. I need 16 pounds of product in my spreader, and I'm going to see how much I can put in this little thing and get a sense of what 16 pounds looks like in that spreader. So roughly right now I've got 7 pounds in there. So I'm going to put that into my spreader. Same thing again, another 7. Now we just need 2 more pounds. All right, very close to just about half of the hopper full. So I just take notes of this stuff just for the future so that I remember, you know, next time I don't have to measure all this stuff out. What I'm trying to do today is figure out exactly what I need to set this to get this spread evenly over that area. And then I write down those notes. That way in the future, I know next year I don't need to do any of this stuff. I just know what the setting is on the spreader. I put the amount in there and I go to town and just get it done. So here's the spreader settings. According to what I'm seeing here, it doesn't really describe what this setting is as far as the rate right here. I believe this is for the high rate. So that would be the 2.73 rate according to what I'm seeing. This is an earthway style that I have. So right here, 15 to 16. I'm probably going to set it at about a 14 and see how it comes out and get a sense of that, and we'll go from there. Also remember that walk speed is going to affect this, so you could set your spreader at whatever setting is on the back, and just depending on how fast or slow you walk, that's going to put out more or less product. That's why it's very important to calibrate things to your actual step and your actual rhythm of how fast you walk, because those settings on the back are just a general guideline and they are not 100% set in stone for every person. Usually you'll get close, but that's why if this is your first time doing this or your first time doing a certain area in your lawn, going overboard the first time on trying to get it right is just not a bad idea. I personally think that's just a little bit fast. Put it down a little bit. Somewhere, I think I'm on right about 13 now. So I don't know if this is going to show on camera, but I'm trying to overlap basically to my last tire pass. So the tire is about right here from my last pass. So when I'm going, I'm watching and I'm trying to throw the edge of that to that tire pass. That we have good even coverage across there without overlapping too much. Now, I have never found a spreader that I like. I haven't ever tried any of the super high-end expensive ones, but which I might have to get into here because I just have never found one that works perfectly. Last year I had a lot of streaking even with this thing up on the main big field that I did, so sometimes I walked the entire thing with this thing just to hopefully get better even coverage than a pull behind, but it still just did not work great. Yeah, I don't know, I gotta figure that out. Okay, I have about 1.5 passes left. This would be basically just about right on, but what happens with this spreader, as soon as you get to a level like this, just not enough weight to push it down, and you kind of got to bounce it around and get it to come out, but it doesn't come out very evenly. So I'm going to add a little more just for weight. I'm going to write down that setting above about 13 for me. You can see I walk pretty briskly as well. That's about the right setting for this product for me. Okay, last thing on the agenda today is every year I say that I'm going to apply my liquid fertilizer starting on April 1st. And do I ever do it on April 1st? No. So today's not April 1st either, it's April 3rd. But I usually don't apply because the weather looks like, oh, it's warm and cold and warm and cold and I don't need it yet. But remember with liquids that you're not applying very much rate at a time. So if you start this too late and you're only applying 0.1 pounds of N or something like that, well, then you're going to be behind about mid-May and you're going to look at the lawn and say, it just doesn't look as green as it should. So you should have started those liquids a little earlier, which is what I'm doing today. Not on everything because I just put down a bunch of fertilizer with that pre-emergent on some of those areas. But I'm going to do the golf green today and use my Lawn Supply Equalizer product on there. In case some of you don't know who might be new, I started Lawn Supply Company a few years ago to bring unique products to homeowners, things that you can't just go to a store and get. These are only available through my website. So today I'm going to be using my favorite product, which is Equalizer. It's a soluble, which means that we just have to measure it out, put it into a bucket, stir it all up very well and mix it well, and then put it into the sprayer. And my golf green is roughly 4,000 square feet, which works perfect for a backpack sprayer because it's 4 gallons. I want to put down 1 gallon per 1,000, and that's what I'm going to do this evening. So very easy process on this. I need 8 ounces per gallon of water, so that's going to be 4 gallons that I put in there, so 8 times 4, 32 ounces of product that I need. So we're going to start this on here. We're going to tear that. I have a pretty good idea that this is about full when I have 32 ounces. 31.65, that'll be close enough. I'm going to put about half the water in there, and then I'll add the product, stir that all up really well, and then add the rest of the water. Alright, so I got a little drill here just to get the water moving. So I still got this super cheap sprayer. It's on my 3rd season now, and it seems to be just fine. So you probably can't see it well on camera, but I mowed yesterday in this direction, so that's going to help me just follow my stripes essentially. I try to usually do that where I have some sort of direction that just helps me to figure out exactly where I'm going, especially because I'm not using any sort of dye or anything like that. So you'll get used to it after you practice, but that's what I do usually. That is a pretty good first day outside for this season, so looking forward to getting outside more and getting some more projects done for the season. But hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.